Maryland and Washington, D.C. Maryland. Key facts. Abbreviation MD. Nickname The Old Line State. Capital Annapolis. Flower Black-eyed Susan. Tree White Oak. Bird Baltimore Oriole. Motto Fatim Masci Parole Femine. Manly deeds, womanly words. What? Washington, D.C. Key facts. Abbreviation D.C. Nickname The District. Motto Justitia Omnibus. Justice for all. Maryland, pronounced something like Maryland, is like Delaware, a middle state, not quite South and certainly not Yankee. If ever there was a silly name for a town, it is surely that of Maryland's elegant and graceful capital city, Annapolis. I hope Queen Anne, after whom it was named, wasn't too hacked off about it. What would have been wrong with Anvil? Or it sounds like a blacksmith's iron, of course. Incidentally, one of the minor but interesting linguistic differences that one meets along the way in America is that they say named for, where we would say named after. So they might say Annapolis was named for Queen Anne, and Baltimore, Maryland's biggest town, was named for the English pair Cecil Calvert, Lord Baltimore, who, as it happened, married one Anne Arundel, after whom, or for whom, Annapolis was originally named Annestown before, in a fit of sycophancy, the city fathers dedicated it to the then young Princess Anne, later of course the last of the Stuart monarchs. One might say all that and then be left both out of breath and holding the loose end of a conversation thread. Annapolis, Naptown, from the nap in the middle of its name, would argue with Newport, Rhode Island, over which is the sailing capital of America. Indeed, Annapolis styles itself the sailing capital of the world. The approach over the gorgeous Chesapeake Bay makes for one of the most attractive arrivals imaginable. Water is everywhere, the perfect place to sail and to train naval cadets. Really, and there, sure enough, stands the United States Naval Academy, the Navy's equivalent of West Point. With the main street, which was the closest to an English country town high street I have ever seen in America, flower-bedecked shop fronts, a graceful state house, and handsome naval cadets strolling about wherever we look, Annapolis strikes me as 100% charming. So neat, so pretty. Even the horse that took me about the streets had nail varnish and an expensive coiffure. I feel like I could live here. The urban excitements of Baltimore and Washington, D.C. are too far away should one miss bright city lights. And it is towards Washington, 35 miles to the west, that I next turn my attention. Chicken, Maryland. Firstly, however, I have to get to the bottom of Chicken, Maryland, or Maryland chicken. Driving towards Annapolis and feeling faint from hunger, at least an hour haven't passed since I savaged a blueberry muffin, I stopped off at a diner for a late lunch. Do you know, I decided I think I shall have Chicken, Maryland. Say what? Maryland chicken? Chicken, Maryland. Ain't never heard of that, honey. I'm still in Maryland, aren't I? You sure are. And forgive me, are you yourself from Maryland? Born and raised. Well, not wishing to humiliate this fine young waitress with exposing further ignorance of her own home state, nor wanting to rob her of my custom, I ordered a hot dog and a root beer. The next diner was supervised by an elderly waitress. Surely she would know her state dish. Chicken, Maryland? Never did hear of such a thing. Wasn't it Well, fried chicken, I think, banana and pineapple fritters, gammon, that sort of things. You say banana? Several hours later, I had eaten 3 burgers, 2 more hot dogs, a plate of chili, and 4 ice creams. The news everywhere was the same. Chicken Maryland, not known at this address. The last diner I tried hasn't heard of the dish either, but I noticed they offer a free Wi-Fi internet service, so I turned to trusty old Wikipedia. Chicken Maryland or Maryland chicken is a dish with various interpretations, depending on the country of origin. It is not necessarily known in the U.S. state of Maryland and is not considered a native dish thereof. Well, that explains it. Curse those school dinner ladies. But thank you, Internet. Which reminds me, I am late for an appointment with Wikipedia's founder, Jimmy Wales. We are due to meet in the lobby of the Willard Hotel, Washington, D.C. The Willard. The Willard Hotel is a grand Washington institution. Martin Luther King wrote his I Have a Dream speech in one of its bedrooms in 1963. Abraham Lincoln stayed here before his inauguration, and Ulysses S. Grant used to retreat to the hotel lobby for tea and nibbles when he was president. He is said to have grown so annoyed with those hanging around and begging him for favor that he cursed them as those damned lobbyists. Now I happen to know that this explanation of the origin of the word lobbyist is untrue, but I arrived for a meeting with Jimmy Wales hoping to catch out his remarkable creation. Wales, as it's fairly well known, made his first fortune in the option market in Chicago and his second with an adult-oriented web portal called Bormis. With his editor-in-chief Larry Sanger, he created Newpedia to feed this gargantuan and ambitious online encyclopedia idea. They created a wiki-based site whose aim originally was to service and feed the Newpedia project. Well, Wikipedia, as the world knows, has grown and grown into the most popular reference source in the history of the planet. It is mocked for mistakes, but in reality, who could possibly deny its value, reach, depth, and importance? On top of this, it is free, open, wholly funded by volunteers, donations, and entirely non-profit making. The neat, friendly fellow who meets me in the lobby of the Willard seems to me to symbolize much of what America has given the world in business and entrepreneurialism. On the one hand, we have a man who did a master's degree in finance and copped a bundle in the raw capitalist's world of options trading, and then repeated the trick with, if not pornography, certainly a trade which one of could regard as idealistic, and on the other we have a philanthropist, the third act of whose career involves the creation of something wholly new, idealistic, and allowing for natural flaws all human creations are likely to suffer from, good. I sit with laptop perched to top lap as tea is brought. Did you know, I say, that laptop machines is an anagram of Apple Macintosh? Yes, says Jimmy Wales. Oh, anyway, hope you don't mind, but I thought we'd test your creation. Go right ahead. Wikipedia leaps the first hurdle straight away. The term lobbyist and to lobby originate here. This is probably false, as the verb to lobby is found decades earlier and did not originally refer to Washington politics. Good one, Wikipedia. Phew, breathes Jimmy. I show him the entry under Stephen Fry, not an article I am prone to gaze at fondly, but every now and again I have become used to people asking me how I enjoyed myself at the public school Gresham's. Whatever I protest that I did not go there, they assure me that I did because it says so in Wikipedia. Okay, "Let's change it," says Jimmy, with the patient ease of one who has had to do this many times at parties. He shows me how to register, log in, and edit the article. Wikipedia is organic, self-healing, mistakes are put right. But sometimes not before journalists have embarrassed themselves by quoting from an erroneous entry, I point out. If Wikipedia can add to its public service role by embarrassing journalists, why then? Jimmy downs his tea. "Gotta rush. Great talking to you." He leaves to the airport and I walk over to the Ronald Reagan Conference Center. There appear to be more institutions, streets, and buildings named for that president than almost any other, to catch a performance by the Capitol Steps, a satirical revue troupe who use well-known songs with changed lyrics to poke fun at the political establishment. How do you solve a problem like Korea? That sort of things, all very fun and excellently performed. Capitol Steps has become almost as much of a Washington institution as Grant's Tomb and the Lincoln Memorial. I meet Barry, one of the performers, and she promises to show me those and other sides tomorrow. Segue. And when the morrow dawns, a new potential way for me to make an ass of myself is discovered. I drive Barry in the cab while she points out the sites and tells me where their bodies are buried. "I used to come here as a girl," she says, as we zoom past the Capitol. "If people knew what went on, all the sexual scandals. Oh, do tell. Imagine the worst and double it," is all she will say. There must be something in the air. Washington is built on a drained swamp, after all. I drop Barry off and pop into the Segway hire company to be given a lesson in controlling one of the strange electric conveyances, half bicycle, half tennis court, white line roller. Apparently George W. Bush fell off one and caused great embarrassment of himself and the manufacturers. George W. may have his faults, but I suspect he is more coordinated and physically able than me, so I entertain real doubts as to whether Segway and I are going to be friends. Extraordinarily, we hit it off from the first, and I am soon skimming around D.C. like it isn't easy to know what I scheme like. A heap of figure skating, I suspect. As I whiz past the Jefferson and Lincoln memorials, I see the American flag spluttering against a lilac sunset, and I realize that tomorrow is November 11th, Armistice Day. Just 500 yards further on is the state line, and beyond it Virginia and Arlington Cemetery. Another state beckons.